Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast. Well, many thanks for joining us on the Journal of Biophilic Design. We're really excited to be joined by Elliott Bennett. He's founder of iPlants magazine and also the Biophilic Design Awards. He's president and owner of the iPlants magazine. I'm going to put a link on the website, on the Journal of Biophilic Design website, and also alongside the spiel that goes with each podcast. Elliott, many thanks for joining us, first of all.
Happy to be here.
Great, thank you. And listeners, he's actually wiring in from Canada, which is about to go in the middle of a blizzard. So we're lucky to have him before the internet connection disappears. So,
yeah.
Well, Elliott, can you tell us first a little bit about yourself, please? What your background is, and how you got into plants.
So my background is a second generation business owner. My parents, they had started a service industry business. We had evolved out of a cleaning company, which was my grandparents' business. We were inside commercial buildings, and early in the 80s, a request came in for some plants. And it was basically two plants that were killed by a painter painting a lead paint in an office. And then the client asked my dad to replace the plants or figure out what was going on. And it just started from there. So it's small beginnings, and we're in a smaller city, so there's only so many competitors here, and we've been able to be successful. We got our largest break in the late 80s, 88, and we really went in through the 90s and 2000s up into 2022 now, with a lot of focus on the interior landscaping side of things. So we offer pots and plants with a maintenance package, and you can either lease or buy. And we offer terms. We have a warehouse. We can house, up to 1,000 plants at a time. We bring in planters that are from Germany, typically, overseas or US. And yeah, our clients, they stick with us long term. It's great. The maintenance is how we, generate money ongoing. And it's been a good business model for us. What brings me along to today is things falling apart in 2019 and 2020. I was pretty much at a point where I'd been there for 10 years. They don't really need me involved anymore. The organization itself was using the program for its own purposes. At the time, there's a lady by the name of Kathy Fadu. She ran iPlants magazine. Started it in 2010 to 2019, and she shut it down at the end of 2019 due to some health concerns. So she wanted to enjoy retirement and get that started, which I don't blame her. So the magazine went dormant for 6 or 8 months, basically, and it had been running a interior design contest, which was kind of a similar program to what I had been running at the nonprofit. However, she had the magazine to promote the actual winners, which we didn't have. We had an awards show gala where people would come and get their plaques, get their ovations and have dinner, and then that was it. So COVID hit, and I was home more, trying to figure out, we didn't have an e-commerce side to our business, and the magazine was there. I knew it was just sitting there, basically. Nobody had picked it up. So I ended up talking to Kathy. I was like, I don't know how to run a magazine, but I can run the awards program for sure.
Yeah.
And then, so we got that all sorted out, and then started on the magazine. My girlfriend is a basically marketing and communications expert, and she had previous experience building these kinds of magazines. So it worked out great. We get to work on the magazine together.
Nice.
And she develops the covers, called pictures, and we started I think we launched it on Christmas Day 2020. That was like the rebirth of the magazine.
Yeah.
And from there, I've been seeing the top projects in North America for about 10 years. I know what's going on within the interior landscaping world with as far as the green walls, moss walls, Christmas decorations, all that stuff. So I got a good grasp of what's going on. And there's another nonprofit organization called Green Plants for Green Buildings, which is really been formed by the past PIA group that I had originally started with. So I have a really good connection with that group, and being a part of Green Plants for Green Buildings for several years, seeing, what's current in the marketplace as far as information we can sell or give out to clients. That's where Biophilic Designs kind of crept in. So originally they were trying to bring the plants and get LEED accreditation points for them, for these buildings to have a reason to buy more pots and plants, essentially, and get the LEED points. And that just wasn't working out. They weren't signing off on bringing plants into LEED. It ended up going into something called the WELL building standard.
Okay.
And then from there, it's now Biophilic Design has kind of taken over pretty quickly with, within the industry, but that's kind of what's going on here. And I know that plants are only a small percentage of Biophilic Design itself, but it is the living thing. There's nothing quite like it other than an animal, essentially, that you could have around that's alive. So that's the difference maker between having an actual plant and a picture of a plant. And more people nowadays seem to be gravitating towards live plants, which is great for the industry. So that's the long story of how I got the magazine, and then I rebranded her awards program, the Biophilic Design Awards. And in partnership with Green Plants for Green Buildings, some of their experts in the field helped me develop the scoring and judging criteria. So it's been tailored to reflect basically biophilic design attributes that would apply to interior landscaping professionals. So that's really our core group, is that segment that's, going into commercial buildings, doing a large atrium, doing living walls, moss walls, the entire office. And it could be somebody speccing it like a designer or an architect. And then maybe the interior landscapers are taking over and doing the installs and then the maintenance. So those groups would be the ideal candidate for going for one of these awards, essentially.
And they're called the Biophilic Design Awards, isn't it? That's the title of what it is.
That is the title. Yeah. Biophilic Design Awards.
Exactly. And they're great. They're really good. You get some really interesting people applying, and so you shortlist and then who you celebrate. So we'll come on to those very shortly. But just you touched on the thing there about biophilic design, about that now being like an overarching term. When I talk to some interior designers and architects and sort of business owners, corporate, and sometimes they don't know about biophilic design. There's it's over here in England, there's still like, oh well, plants, it's landscape, it's interior landscaping. But then you get like you say, these other people are going, oh well, it's biophilic design. I get it. And there's like usually coming from the interior designer. Are you finding it's just generally more people are understanding biophilic design, A, have heard of biophilic design, and B, are kind of more open-minded to embrace biophilic design?
I think within the industry, it's become pretty commonplace. Outside of the industry, there's a steep learning curve. People hear biophilia and they think it's some disease. It's just got that name. You go, no, it's not that. It's a good thing. It's people's natural attraction to other living things like plants and animals. So we've evolved out of the countryside into cities for the first time in a couple hundred years, and we have an innate, gravitational pull to nature. And we've taken ourselves out of that, and trying to replicate it in as many ways as possible. There's studies that show that it does have effectiveness in well-being improvements. So there is science there. I mean, I know I've come across some people that don't like plants, and it just kind of blows my mind. It's like, it's just sitting there. It's like, and it's just like, I don't know. Some people are like that. They just don't have that vibe with plants, and
I
they're
think
hopefully few and far between.
Exactly. I think some people, they're kind of like, they think they're going to kill it, so they're like, oh, I don't really want to do it. If I get that, I've got responsibility and all this kind of stuff. But I've also shown that if you look after a plant, you're more likely to look after yourself. So actually there's kind of a win-win there. So there's probably some psychology thing going on there, which maybe we shouldn't delve into right now. But
Yeah, no.
I mean, for you personally, why is biophilic design important? Why is it really important that we incorporate this in our lives, in all sorts of aspects of our lives?
Well, from a business perspective, from myself, biophilic design is the new buzzword essentially, and fulfilling that, if there is a client need for that, that's kind of where I come in. The importance of it. I mean, I've seen, usually the best day when we get a new client is when the plants go in. So there's the whole behind the scenes, doing the design, the ordering, getting it all together, planting it, and then you arrive on scene and you start to put these plants in people's office, and people are like running around the office, they're trading plants sometimes, and it's just, you can feel this energy increase in the office space. And I'm not there after the usual install. Usually we're there a couple of weeks later to do maintenance, but I've seen it so many times, the first install day, and how people pick up and their mood change. You know, if that is sustainable long term, and if just more and more reminders of nature, you know, whether it's artwork, moss walls, just textures in the carpets and prints in the windows, or glass work, it just seems like every little thing you do, it all adds up to better well-being, essentially. And that seems to be the core driver now for what I do. You know, it didn't start out that way. There's always been a positive spin on plants. Plants clean the air. Plants make you happy. And it is all those things. But now it's got this proper label, it seems, that it is biophilic design. And then what is biophilic design? So that's where now the education side of things is kind of coming to light, where it's like within my industry, where it's now become a common term. Does everybody fully understand what biophilic design is? So that's where, you know, going through an awards program where you're getting judged by biophilic design experts really it's like a peer review, essentially. Like, you want that stamp of approval where you're saying you're a biophilic designer. Well, let's make sure you understand what you are selling as biophilic design. It's not just plants. There's more to it. You know, there's 14 different segments of biophilic design, I believe. So it's knowing all those, and you know, not all of them apply, but you need to know where your strengths are. And that's kind of for the industry itself. More educated people that we have, the better we look, more professional come across, and just as an industry as a whole, it should elevate everybody. You know, and that's kind of what I see.
Yeah, absolutely. And because biophilic design being a well-being, you know, it's better for people, place and planet and everything. I think I think that's, and obviously really trying to hit the environmental button as well. And obviously, you know, there's all these different aspects of biophilic design, which is also including about using natural materials, having wood tables, you know. And one of the things that I really like about plants, particularly when you're doing, you know, for an install, is that the fact that they move. So you have another pattern of biophilic design is that this movement, you know, this sort of erratic movement that you get in nature with the leaves, you know, in the wind, you know, sometimes they're stationary and then something moves them. And if you think about most offices, you know, because most of these places that you're doing the installations are offices or schools or whatever, but they're boxes basically. And they're hermetically sealed for a start. You know, there's no natural air coming in, no natural, you know, the windows, ventilation isn't open, so you don't get much movement. And what's really lovely about plants, even when you get people walking past them up and down the corridor, you get that sort of movement, and also the shadows which move and create patterns on the floor. And this is all really, really good for our brains, isn't it? So I mean, just as a kind of like just a crazy question, do you have a favorite plant? I know you kind of intimated to one just before we started recording.
I mean, I love palms. I'm a palm tree guy. I love the big classic outdoor palm with coconuts on it. And it's because I'm in like a tough climate. I can't have one outside, and that's, you know, my holidays are typically to the tropics somewhere where I get that. But yeah, it's a dream of mine to have palms, and I have a palm in my bedroom, for instance, a smaller one, a ponytail palm.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's that little slice of the tropics, which, you know, brings that warm feeling of heat and positive vibes that I believe is my underlying draw to the palm tree. It just has a good feeling and a good vibe to it. Yeah, that would be the one.
It's really nice because the iPlant magazine actually has a palm.
It has a palm in the logo. Yeah, we turned the eye into a palm. That was all me. I mean, another showcasing the palm love. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it went down.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's really good. I like palm trees as well. You know, I love lots of different sort of plants, but yeah, palm trees. There's something about it, isn't it, that conjures that time. I spent some time in Bali, and in the garden in the sort of villa place that I was staying, and it had all these palm trees above my head, and it was just lovely. And it was the sound as well, the sound of those particular leaves. You know,
you just see it kind of like fluttering in the wind a little bit. You know, nothing too much, but it just sounds warm. You know, and inviting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to invite the listeners, so people who are listening to the podcast, I would really be intrigued if you could write in and let us know what your favorite plant is. That would be really something, and I might do a little collation and do something with that later. Yeah, so going back to the Biophilic Design Awards, has there been I mean, you could sort of just tell us about one, or you know, somebody that might stick out in your mind, that you might just want to mention, you know, sort of maybe the kind of company that it was, or the install that it did. Is there something that you just like to kind of just highlight to give people an idea of the kind of things that are showcased in the Biophilic Design Awards, please?
So we have done one Biophilic Design Awards issue, which was last July. Our top winner was actually from London, Plant Designs London. They had a project that had originally spec'd, I think it was 80 to 90% artificial plants. And it was a multi-level atrium setup. They somehow managed to get about 10,000 plants, actual live plants, throughout the office, throughout the building, and just did it up. And there was nothing quite like it as far as, you know, the other entries last year. We had some really good entries, but this one stood out. Plant Designs London. Yeah, excellent job they did. I can send you I've sent you the issue just recently, but I can send you some more photos of the actual install, and you can maybe post those for people to see. But yeah, it was just really getting to the core of bringing plants and creating that biophilic design tie-in with the plants. So it was an outstanding job that they had done. Yeah.
Fantastic, great. So obviously, I sort of touched on the sort of environmental impact and why Biophilic Design it sort of supports that. But what is it for you that the Biophilic Design can really do? If someone was thinking about, you know, if you're sort of, if you were going to like pitch this to like a business owner, like to a hospital or to a workplace, or how would you, if they're kind of, like, you know, there is a climate crisis, the IPCC report came out and said we're not meeting our targets. How would you kind of use Biophilic Design to get them over the line, as it were, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're almost in a pay to play situation. You know, plants can be a luxury item at times, and you know, you have to be committed and understanding that this is boosting your overall environment, and it's not just for you, it's for your staff. It's also a representation of your company when you walk in. If your plants look ratty when you walk into an office building, well, are they going to be taking care of me as a client, or is it going to be, you know, is that what I can expect? So it's you know, there's an appearance factor, but from an environmental standpoint, I mean, it would really come down to speccing the right plants, right planters. You know, there's sub-irrigation that we use a lot. We want to try to stretch things out to not have as much maintenance to them. You know, lower drinking plants. Yeah, just really going for the best bang for the buck, getting them as much as they can afford to do, and getting them the health benefits essentially associated with plants. So benefits are for the staff and the clients typically. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how it goes with plants.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. I mean, you mentioned about the NASA study, and there's all these different scientific research reports that we've kind of looked at in the past, kind of thing. I mean, there is so much that you can learn about biophilic design, and it's like kind of knowing where to start. Do you have like a go-to place that you would recommend people to kind of have a look at to try and find out about biophilic design, if you know, or do you kind of do you tend to kind of just sort of talk about it kind of thing when you're faced with a client?
Typically I talk about it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of resources that are out there. Green Plants for Green Buildings, which is one of the organizations in the United States. They've got a lot of information on biophilic design. They're the driving force over here for bringing that into the built environment for the office space. You know, getting the proper information to architects and designers is kind of their mandate right now. So they're a good resource. I believe it's Plants at Work in the UK to have some information on biophilic design. Your site is great also, you know, really fine tuning that understanding of what that is, because you know people are focused on one thing or another when it's a lot of different things. So that's really kind of get the word out for that. Like I've seen you've got some large murals and pictures of plants that you're offering, and I mean that looks great on the wall, and that will give you that biophilic design too. Exactly. Yeah, the resources are kind of everywhere, you know, if you know where to look, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're going to have a search engine on the front of the Journal of Biophilic Design, which will be like sort of Google for biophilic design, so people can kind of like be a central hub, hoping that people can come to, you know, if they chance upon the site or whatever. So, which is great. Do you have like an installation that you've done, or that just sticks out in your mind? Has there been one it's like a sort of super challenge with lots and lots of different plants, or there was like a huge tree, or there was something that was just like radical that it was unexpected? Or because obviously you've been at this for a long time, you know, is there anywhere that you've installed one over the course of your sort of plant career?
Yeah,
go on.
One comes to mind. I've been privileged to work with a company called G-Sky Plant Systems, and they're a green wall provider. I love their product line. It makes sense to me what they're doing. And they brought us into certain larger installs. One is in Toronto, where we built a green wall that started 20 feet off the ground and then went up another 55 feet for an overall height of 75 feet. And then it was about 10 feet wide.
Wow.
So there was 3,200 4-inch plants that went into that. And the build was, we had to do it on a swing stage. So it was getting training on swing stage, fall safety. And then we started the install. First time we went over top of the wall and then had to dangle and then start to go down. So it was just like, I've been working at heights up into about 25, 30 feet typically is what I would go to, but going to 75 feet and starting at that height and going down, it was nerve-wracking to say the least. But the project, how it turned out, was just this awesome green wall. It had this swoop design through it. It was kind of like I believe it was a river-based design. And it faces Yonge Street, which is the most famous street in Toronto. It's in a glass cube that's lit up at night. So there's this like, in the middle of winter, there'll be a huge green wall to look at in Midtown Toronto. And that, you know, for traveling to go do the job, getting the training, going through the whole construction side of that, and then now we still maintain that wall. It was a feat, and it really pushed me outside of my typical like working zone. So that would be the one that would come to mind. As far as something that changed me as a person, that was the one. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. I think that's what I really love about when I'm interviewing people like yourself who are actually at the coalface, at the front, the front line, the front, front facing of implementing biophilic design. And it's like you say, like just actually holding the plants and touching the plants, and then collaboration and where you get to install things. I mean, that just sounds fantastic. I mean, like you say, it's like a river design, and it lights up at night. So even in the winter time, you've got something green to look at. And yeah, absolutely gorgeous.
It's kind of biophilic design on a really large scale for the public to view, and it's like it's there all the time. It's being part of that particular project. A lot of these projects are they're behind the scenes, where it's in an office tower, and it's it's away from the public. They can't see it. So unless you get into the retail sector where you're working within a mall, and the mall's doing a lot of stuff, people will see it then. But the offices tend to be more closed off. But this particular one was really made for the public. It was awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I love that. I love the fact that biophilic design is out there for everybody to enjoy. I think it's lovely. So just a really a final question, which I ask everybody as part of this, the biophilic design Journal of Biophilic Design. If you could paint the world with a magic brush of biophilia, what would it look like?
Palm trees. Just kidding. There would be palm trees though. Definitely more plants. Nature, I think, inspired everything as much as possible. More water, good weather. Just positive energy is what I think that's really the underlying basis of biophilic design, is bringing positivity from multiple angles and trying to create that. It's almost a holistic approach to the well-being. So sunshine, warm weather, water, palm trees, sand, beaches, even being on the water, in a sea-doo or a boat. Those are all, just great feelings, that can all kind of be brought into the built environment in different ways, whether it's pictures, plants, all that stuff. So that would be just more of it. If it was more of a sustainable thing and affordable, that would also help. I know the world's going a little crazy these days with the prices of everything, so it becomes challenging, to give people, you want to give people the most they can afford to get, and that's how I approach things. That's the kind of shopper I would be. I want the best bang for the buck. I don't mind spending, but I don't want to feel like, okay, I only got a couple things, and it doesn't add up to me. So as I'm selling, I'm still in that mindset. So I'm trying to give people as much as I can, and that's typically how I go about, dealing with clients. So just more of all the good stuff, less of the bad stuff.
Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.